Chapter 10. Zelda ducked her head down into the bubbles, leaving just enough room for her nose to graze the foam. Ganondorf held himself in the arched doorway, his nostrils flaring as he savored the cloudy air fused with safina and lavender. Ancient memories of those scattered visits he'd made to King Roru's palace for their decadent celebrations re-emerged in Zelda's mind, and with them the alarming pull he always had on her gaze. Through the tiers of olive and grape trays, and the girls in their feathered skirts and elaborate masks pouring enough wine to drown a Goron, she locked onto that viridescent skin lurking within the respite of shadows. No matter how crowded the ballroom, how vibrant the entertainment, or persistent the other company, she was keenly aware of his proximity and place from her. She felt self-conscious of him catching her staring, and so forced herself to look away, to listen to what Sonia was gossiping about. Pretend that it was only a coincidence that he happened to fall square in frame wherever she glanced up. At the time, she could chalk it up to her suspicions of his intentions, an alibi that she could hide well behind once those fears turned true. He plucked the porcelain pitcher from its perch on the wooden stool left of the door, and let it dangle from his fingertips as he sauntered around the bath basin, his eyes flicking from her hovering blue gaze to the opaque water and back.
"Do you remember the first time I saw you?"
he asked, as if glimpsing her thoughts.
"Yes,"
she said quietly, tipping her head back up above the water.
"Indulge me,"
he commanded, coming to a halt behind her.
"In Roru and Sonia's palace, on the day you swore fealty." "Ah yes, that preposterous charade."
His tone was almost jovial, as if unearthing lost battle stories with a friend at the pub.
"An entire grueling day's journey to kiss the hand of that simpering farce of a king and his worthless queen. All too thrilled to sneer down at me and the greatest warriors known to this kingdom, the realm he had the nerve to call his own. We should have torched them all alive."
He knelt down right above her head, pressing the pitcher through the froth to slowly fill with water.
"But there was a special guest whose presence had started stirring the lips of that miniature empire, wasn't there? Sonia's little niece. Isn't that what they called you? They were such prolific liars, you'd think they'd have been better at it."
His paw pressed firmly down, just above her hairline. He cascaded water down her gathered hair from the pitcher, his palm damming her forehead to keep the stream out of her eyes. He reached down just above her locked necklace, sweeping up a handful of soap. The delicate constellation of bubbles trembled in his hand, their absence leaving a porthole on the surface with her round, cream-colored breasts bobbing underneath. He massaged the soap into her scalp, his fingertips tracing slow rings around her hairline and above her ears, the entrancing pattern lulling her head back as her eyelids sank in spellbinding relaxation.
"I didn't think twice about your presence in their sham of a court, until I arrived. And you surprised me. The way you locked onto me and the Verena assembled in the midst, I could feel your fear and misgivings radiating off the dais, past the vapid grins of your long-lost idiot relatives, content to think that they'd quieted the nuisance in the south with one gesture. You saw straight through all of it to my true purpose and power. You understood it in a way no one else had, as if it were a part of you as well."
His hands wove lower, kneading the base of her hairline, and a rumbling of approval purred from her throat. For as long as she could remember, this procedure was a chore assigned to maids and attendants, one task out of a long list they had to tick off before bidding her good evening and taking off for their own lives. Never had anyone lingered here, basking in a source of delight she herself had forever overlooked. Link hadn't. She recoiled at the thought, seeping in over the partition she'd tried to erect in her mind, keeping him cornered off from this nightmare. To avoid these ghastly comparisons. Of course, he hadn't thought to wash her hair. How was he to know how wonderful it would make her feel? But then, how did Ganondorf know?
"Because it was part of you, wasn't it?"
the king continued as he worked his fingers deeper into the lather, her skull rocking along with its pressure.
"A cursed destiny only those three interlocking pieces of it could grasp."
Another splash of water, rinsing away the lacy lather strands twisting through her golden hair.
"How many times, I wonder?"
he murmured, his hands dipping below the surface to grasp at the velvety skin below.
"In these years of hiding away from your truest potential, did you wonder why, after tens of thousands of decades, Why did I awaken in the single pinprick of time that you found me in the depths beneath this very floor?
Her breathing suddenly stopped as he pinpointed her most recurring nightmare.
Make no mistake, sweet princess,
he murmured.
Hyrule was always there for me to take. I was only waiting for you.
His left hand curled around the left succulent mound of her breast, thumbing those same, intricate massaging little circles at her right, swollen nipple as his right hand continued to trace and memorize her form, luxuriating in its long slide down her mermaid silhouette to her deepest crevice below. 2 fingers effortlessly curled inside of her, tentatively exploring her walls and corners. She felt her velvety muscles clamp around him, a welcoming plea for more. Her heightening moans sank into the thick, damp stone like vapor as her hips hitched forward, begging him further.
Submit to my indulgence,
he demanded, his fingers curling into a desperate grip at her chest, his wrists digging against her heart.
Tell me how badly you crave me, knowing that your knight is still out there, desperate to return. Please,
she exhaled, all of her past and future seeming utterly irrelevant here in this crystallized, singular prism of want.
My king.
He pinched her nipple hard between his thumb and forefinger, twisting as a third finger slipped in to draw thick curlicues within her plush depths.
My name,
he insisted through bared teeth.
From your lips. Ganondorf.
She tilted her head, bracing against the marble, gripping the lip of the bath as her chest crested the water, and the torrent of rapture hiking up her core drew closer and closer to its peak.
Yes, Zelda. Ganondorf, please, release me, I'm begging you. You ache so badly, don't you? He murmured, slowing the thrumming of his fingers, savoring how ferociously she squeezed back. A growling moan seethed through his clenched teeth, his rough red hair scratching against her cheek as he drew ever closer. I dreamed you'd be this receptive. All those nights I spent planning how and when I could have you. You've been craving this too, haven't you, princess? Deep down in the places your heart won't even let you glimpse. Yes, she breathed, his words blurring together as she lost any notion of what she had or hadn't ever wanted, only wanting to rise and fall within this sweet precipice. I'll make you so happy. His hands withdrew, leaving her bobbing as she choked on a whimper. He spoke deliberately into her ear, as if carving the words on her mind's slate. I want to watch you cave into every pleasure this world made you believe you were too good to want. He plucked her like a mermaid from the sea, her slicked body pressed tightly against his chest, as he carried her over the door's threshold, into his conquered domain. End of chapter